people hear drones and they instantaneously think someone's spying on them.
Today, we're joined by Christopher Robertson, director of the CSU Drone Center. Chris has been instrumental in integrating UAS into public safety.
We can save a life by having this tech. That's invaluable. There is no dollar amount to that. I'm a patriot, right? I want to see America really realize its industrial technology edge and be a powerhouse in drones. My brain no longer works like the average person's brain. If we don't have $100,000 in the air, that's just Tuesday.
Now, let's talk about, I'd say, securing some funding. I know this is some policy and stuff like that, and I'm sure you can probably expand on this, but securing funding and navigating like policies are crucial for drone program expansion. How have you approached these aspects to support the center's growth?
Yeah, so that's always not the $10, but the $100 to $300,000 question, right? And I can talk more from the law enforcement side policy, what we experienced there, to the drone center side, which is totally different. And so that was the interesting thing from transferring from a law enforcement officer to basically standing up and then starting to become kind of the director of the center. And really was coming from a government kind of, you have a budget perspective, to going to being a small business. So essentially I run a small business that's all around research, education, and training within the university space, while still operating as a nonprofit. Because we are a nonprofit. We can't make a profit. If we make more than we need every year, that's a problem. So we'll start off with the law enforcement side of stuff, and we'll be wearing there. What we learned in the law enforcement world early on with drones was a video was worth $1,000, right? If you can go to your command staff and show them a video of, let's use vernacular, the bad person running out of their car, hiding in a ditch with a thermal camera, and then flying the drone up and having them get up and surrender to the drone without ever having to put a law enforcement officer in the field. I don't care as a law enforcement executive who you are, like, that's not a blank check, but that's money, right? Because you can talk about the risk reduction. Right? I don't have to have an officer blindly out there wandering around with a flashlight trying to find the bad guy who might be trying to ambush them, right? We can achieve all of this in an extremely safe manner for very little dollars in comparison to, well, and you can't put a dollar amount on anybody's life, period, whether it's the officer or the suspect, right? If we can save a life by having this tech, that's invaluable. There is no dollar amount to that. But if I can show that to a law enforcement officer, executive who's making the decisions, that was for us really what kind of opened the purse strings. Was being able to make that case of the risk reduction through, hey, watch this video. I'm not even talking about the evidentiary nature of it, what you can bring into the courtroom, what you can now show that they never even knew. And we could talk about DFR for days, right? And so really, to me, it's always been with law enforcement, a video is worth your money. It's getting that seed money to get that video, right? How do you get your first drone? How do you get especially for the middle to small town law enforcement officer in groups that may not have a ton of funding, how do you work to get there? We used to be able to do it pretty well with grants. We found that that's getting a little bit more limited. It's being more difficult to get grants from law enforcement officers, but they're still out there. I'd really encourage you to research those if you can find one and it fits. We just had another one come out, I don't know, about 6 months ago, and I was going to work for our search and rescue team to get them some upgraded equipment, some things. And it was sad because I went through it. It even had no drone technology on it. At the end of it, you couldn't even apply for it. So that was unfortunate on that. But there are some out there if you can find them. Working with a really good person who's written a grant and knows how to execute it is important, because they can be very staggering to your first time through and following all the rules. So really getting your command staff to buy off on it was what we found it. And it was taking those videos into our chief's office and saying, well, look at this. And him going, this is awesome. I'm like, hey, I want to buy this drone now. Okay, good. I want this upgraded thermal capability so we can find more people. Oh, that's good. Funding from the Drone Center's perspective is a very interesting animal. we are constantly chasing grants, but it's more of a research grant or education style grant. So we are fortunate enough to be a research institution, and that comes with the ability to apply for a lot of different grant funding. So we actually have several grants for education. One is around STEM education for high school students. So we teach a summer camp drone education course here down in Denver that gets 53 high school students and teachers their 107s and a week learning to fly drones. And it's as an upskill program so that they can get out of high school with a credential to be ready to enter the drone industry, or also inspire them to go further into aviation. Maybe it's not drones, maybe it is going into becoming a pilot or an aircraft mechanic later down the road. So that's some of the educational programs we've been able to tap in. We've actually been able to get some educational programs specifically for first responders. I mentioned that 3-day first responder school that we run. We actually operate that at a loss. So the per seat cost of that, I think it's $399 for 3 days of training, is unbelievable. And you get access to the 350, the M30, the Skydio X10, the M3 series, Enterprise series. So you can get out there and fly those and get your hands on through them. That's discounted through a grant. State of Colorado comes in and helps us understand how we can get first responders there, and they cover 50% of that. So that's some of it. We also do a lot of research grant funding. So I mentioned that particulate air sampler. We have certain funding that comes through that grant. We are currently working on some DoD grants as well to look at some different things. And then we do a lot of cost recovery through services. So researchers pay us for our time, our educational classes, helps cover it. So it's always this every single year trying to find the funding either through services or through grants and occasionally some gifts. We occasionally will have the group come in. The only reason we have the Dragonfish is because Autel gave us quite a significant gift on that aircraft. We still had to purchase it, but many thanks to them on their gift to this center.
That's awesome. And I mean, when do you ever get a hands-on with a Dragonfish? Like I was lucky enough to have some because I was helping the original launch of it and such, but still, like when do you ever get that moment? So that's really awesome.
I can't name names, but I will say I had some interesting people out to the center recently, and I got them hands on the Dragonfish. And it's an ISR version, intelligence surveillance reconnaissance. It's phenomenal at it. I would wish I had the bigger version with the better camera. But even the standard camera, the ability to be up there for an hour and just loiter around and look at things it's unparalleled. And this group was a group that's used to having that ISR technology, and they were like, "Wow, this is better than what we fly," and it's a civilian aircraft. And it's cheaper than what you fly too.
I was getting trained on it by McBride himself, Mr. Drone Jesus down in Florida, and we were training it at like out in middle of Florida, and all of a sudden we just, after already experiencing it, we see like a plume of smoke like miles and miles away, and it was like, well, I guess we should check it out. It's just like we're able to like get out there, find a car fire on the interstate, be able to call local like law enforcement, let them know what's going on, and public safety group came out. I mean, it's just I don't know, I'm still a big fan of that thing, even though it's so expensive. But it's a really unique offering, and yeah, it's very cool. Now, this actually moves into this. I know the drone industry is rapidly evolving. What emerging technologies are you the most excited about? And then what are you the most excited about integrating into the center's operations?
There's a lot there, right? Emerging technologies I'm most excited about personally, we'll break this out. eVTOLs, right? I have the dream of rolling out of my garage, flying to work, plugging it in, and then flying home and parking in my garage at night, right? I'm following the Jetson one. I'm following all the different ones that are out there. That one I'm excited about it. I hope, and the electrification of aircraft as a pilot, it really excites me to potentially be able to fly an small electric commuter plane, or even a small electric train plane that I can just take up, fly around the pattern for an hour, come back, land, change out the batteries, and go back at it again, right? Without burning gasoline. I'm really excited about the eVTOLs and see where they go. That's one area. Love to have an eVTOL manufacturer utilize Chrisman as a training and operations base to build, test, and I think it'd be a great place for it. Somehow that's not happened yet. I feel like that's on the horizon though. In the law enforcement perspective, I'm really excited about drone dog technology for DFR. And for 4 years, I ran a 911 communications center as a sergeant. And I ended up, as part of that, getting myself certified because I spent 16 years on the street. And then there's like, hey, you're going to run a 911 dispatch center. I'm like, I don't know a thing about running a dispatcher center. I know how to chase bad guys and, and kick doors and talk to people out on the street and wear blue, but I don't know how to run a radio console. And so I walked in, I'm like, all right, train me. So they put me through and I became a certified dispatcher. And the law enforcement officers listening, love your dispatchers because they have a job that is so hard. I barely passed. Like it's a difficult job. And I was always really excited, like to see the potential for 911 dispatchers or 911 dispatcher and an officer operating a drone and getting into the calls first. And that capability and technology is really, really something I'm excited about. So seeing the drone deck technology from the different manufacturers coming out and the DFR portals, so integrating in the back end with the computer-aided dispatch software, the CAD systems, to be able to send drones autonomously to a call. Really excited to see where that goes. And it seems like we have a couple manufacturers really doing good work, making inroads there and offering holistic systems. That's been always the thing that's been weird is like, hey, you buy the dock and then you got to figure out the back end API and then you got to figure out the licensure and then you got to figure out the con ops to apply for the BBOS waivers and all those types of stuff. And now you're seeing manufacturers are coming in with one solution and coming in with teams that'll help you get the waivers. And you're seeing the back end ties to CAD. So yeah, I'm excited in the next 3 to 5 years to see how that changes law enforcement and goes from that theory, concept, and testing phase. And we're starting to see a lot of rollouts now to like, this is the standard. Like you don't have DFR. Why aren't you doing that? So from the CSU Drone Center perspective, American-made aircraft. That's the technology that I'm really excited about. We don't need to go into the politics of that, and I'm not going into politics. I mean, we fly a lot of DJI here in the shop. It works. They're great machines. The 350 is one of my favorite aircraft to fly. I've got all the sensors for it, even the H30T. It's the streamlined approach. It's great. We'll be doing some research on it with it next week. And it'll go from that research to mapping with the LiDAR. It's just the ability to do everything with one aircraft. Plus a lot of the little aircraft. It's pretty impressive what they've developed. But I looked at things, they've had 10, 15 years of development at work and a lot of support from their government to build these programs and these profiles. And so I'm excited to see American manufacturers enter the fray, and a couple of them are actually starting to produce really good aircraft. And I want to use those aircraft for our American research. And some of the research I do now is government funded. I can only use American-made aircraft for those now, especially in December when that rolls around. So at the center, we're really investing into the American-made technologies where we can with our limited budget. And so I'm really excited to see the American-made manufacturers start to step into that. And I hope to see that they get a lot of support to continue that and to start challenging any foreign-made aircraft out there so that we can become one of the powerhouses in the drone technology.
Well said. And exactly, like, get the politics out of it. I mean, it's like I've been a DJI user forever because it's the best. But then you also want to see these American-made products just take flight and like crush everything else too. And you want to support. It's a whole thing. As long as we continue to fight to have the people getting out there and risking their lives to be able to have the best tools for their job and whatever that tool might be, I'm sure that's what I think both of us are fighting for. So, or pushing for, let's put it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that we shouldn't be limited in our choices, but as long as there is not an infrastructure IT or back end risk associated with the aircraft that could affect you. But, I'm a patriot, right? I want to see America really realize its industrial technology edge and be a powerhouse in drones. So And it's not just a, oh, I have to use this or I have to use that. It's a, hey, no, this drone is amazing and it's built by X American manufacturer. We're using it because it's the rock star. So I'm excited to see that development and adopt that into our operations as much as we can. Again, it's funding, but it used to be DJI was the cheaper office options. I know you've priced a 350 recently, but or if you can even find one, it's no longer really the case. So it's however long that lasts.
Well, good stuff. So now, challenges that I'm sure you've run into. What challenges have you faced in promoting drone adoption within public safety agencies, and how have you addressed them?
A couple, right? The challenges I faced, the big one we talked about a lot, the cost, right? My brain no longer works like the average person's brain when it comes to talking about money and drones. Okay. It just, the joke I make is if we don't have $100,000 in the air, that's just Tuesday. All right. And it's even getting a little worse now that if we don't have 150,000, that's just Monday. Right. And so when it comes to drones, like I've, for some reason, just shifted that a drone costs $10,000 for a decent entry level quadcopter with a thermal camera. That's just what they cost. Or a Dragonfish costs $120,000, and I know the capability of it. Sometimes it's always interesting flying a Dragonfish that costs more than the airplanes that I occasionally fly.
So true.
It's funny.
Don't crash. Please don't stall. Yeah. Oh God.
This is three of my cars.
It's going to crash. It was just.
It's three of my cars currently in the air, right?
Yes, exactly.
It's like on cars, but I don't even think about that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But if you go to a chief and be like, law enforcement, whether it's a fire chief or law enforcement administrator, and be like, hey, I need $10,000 for a drone. And they're like, what? $10,000 for a toy? Right. And so cost has always been the biggest problem, especially for the small and midterm departments who really could use that drone as a force multiplier and an officer safety, right? If you're talking to a law enforcement officer, a deputy, let's say there's a deputy in let's use Colorado, Western Colorado. You've been to Colorado, once you go west of the Rockies, by the way, if you haven't been to Colorado, that's how we know our directions. The mountains are west. That's just how it is in the northern Front Range.
Yes.
There's a joke.
Front Range, mountains, downslope, west. I mean, yeah.
There's a joke. You hit the Colorado border, right? It's welcome to Colorado. The mountains are west. Here's your Subaru, a flannel shirt, and marijuana is legal. Have a good day.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but you go on the western slope, you might have a deputy that's working by themselves where backup is 30 minutes away. Yes. And they just had a person bail from them on the car. What's their choices?
Right.
What's the choice? To drive away? That's a choice, right? Go out there, fumble in the middle of the dark looking for this person by themselves with no backup where they could be ambushed? Or can I launch the, $7,000, actually I think they're about 5 or 6 now, where they were before the tariffs, $5,000 or $6,000 Mavic 3 or the 25,000 Oil Pro. So the X10, it's a good bird. Can I launch that with the thermal camera? And can I go out there and find the person and see what they're doing and have eyes on them and potentially use a speaker to talk to them and get them to surrender without putting myself at risk? We already talked about that scenario, but getting that barrier to that cost and getting people to understand what the technology can do is the biggest challenge I've faced. It's always the cost. And I see that in the research side of stuff too. I have a lot of people who come to me and they're like, hey, we want you to fly this 200-acre field and we want you to map it 5 times this summer with a multispectral camera. And we want you to provide us all of the geo-referenced NDVIs for the vegetation index. And I'm like, okay, cool. We can do that. No problem. We got all equipment. And they're like, and that'll be like, what, $1,500? I'm like, no. Because they just see, well, you were only out in the field flying for an hour and a half, 5 times, right? And I'm like, you totally missed the time, the prep, cost of the aircraft, the sensor, the software cost.
All right, let's go. Let's see what it is to get a specialist out there with like survey grade equipment and then like this and then like the cost here and then the insurance to have them and then what if they get hurt? Like it's like.
And then forget when it comes to mapping and modeling, 1 hour of flight is usually like 3 hours worth of back end work to get that product generated, right? And so you hand them a quote for like $12,000 and they're like, what, are you crazy? And so I see that a lot, that people don't understand that it's not just flying the drone. And so I've seen a lot of kind of challenges in getting people to understand the actual cost of doing some of this work from the Drone Center side. The other challenges that are very notable to note that I've seen a lot is a lot of people are afraid of public perception. A lot of law enforcement agencies, a lot of fire departments, they're going to think Big Brother's scaring on them. And we thought that too. When we first set up our first, the Liberty County UAS team, we actually did a public meet and greet with the press. We had a whole day where the press could come out, see the technology, ask questions. And then we built a website where we put every single mission up there. Like, we flew at this location at this time and at this date. We wouldn't include anything that was really, we had to sanitize it for public perception, because it was an active case or something. And we got one person that commented on all of our news articles, "Oh, Big Brother's watching." One. And eventually, after maintaining all these programs, we walked away from it. And so I see a lot of people that are concerned about public perception, and we haven't seen it too much. We see it occasionally, but the concern over it seems to be more than the reality. So being upfront about what you're doing, having a public so people can ask questions, keeping a log, maintaining all of your, what you do as a law enforcement officer anyway, is very important with this. But that was one thing we've seen that people think is a hurdle, but hasn't really been a hurdle. You'll have your few naysayers, but not another one. Other issues and challenges we've seen with the adoption is there's a lot of drone fear and hype. And I know that kind of sounds counter to what I just said, and I always have to be careful in politics. This is Chris Robertson speaking, not Chris Robertson, the director of the Drone Center. There, we said it. I've seen drones used as a public tool for politics, and getting people afraid of the technology and as a way to hype up and make a story. And that has seemed to be counterproductive and become a challenge of how we get around that. People hear drones and they instantaneously think someone's spying on them. That's the biggest thing. Drone, someone's spying on me. Whereas the reality of very few instances are we doing that, unless you probably need to be, spied on, like you're actually have a warrant for your arrest or you're doing something wrong. And so that challenge of managing that public perception versus what's really going on, and with DFR moving forward, it could be, but we're responding to active calls type things. That's a challenge that needs to be managed, communicated, and worked open with the public. And you see a lot of communities who, especially with police advisory boards, I hear this a lot. Police advisory board won't let us buy drones because of those fears. And so those challenges, I hear that from a lot of officers coming through our programs of, hey, we're getting trained, but we still haven't figured out how to buy it because we have the money, but the advisory board won't let us because they think we're going to spy on people. So managing that, working through it's been a challenge. We don't need to talk about the politics of the tariffs or all the legislation that's going on.
It's just we're just wild for punishment, I guess, because we stuck in this industry that is just, it's not end user wants product, we sell product, or we provide service. It's just all these like mazes and all this different things, and it's but at the same time, it's so amazing to be on the cutting edge of this rapidly growing and evolving technology, but also being able to provide this absolutely incredible tool to our public safety professionals. And it's one reason I'm sticking around. I love it.
Yeah. And I always got to throw a nod to it, but the regulatory challenge. And I'll actually throw a kudos out to the FAA on this one. I am seeing significant inroads being made in those and times being reduced. I did a operational waiver for one of the research things we're doing here soon. And it's right next to a surface class Echo airport or within the zero grid. Last year, I did the same authorization with the same documents, a letter of support from the airport, what we were doing and everything. And it took 44 days to get approved. And then I just submitted it about a month ago and it was approved in like 5 days.
Wow.
And so, they're definitely changing stuff up and making processes there to make the things easier. But the whole 90 days for a waiver thing just doesn't work in real life. Like, I've got clients who called me yesterday. We're like, hey, we want to do this really cool thing in 2 weeks and we need to fly at 800 feet. I'm like, won't happen. There's no way I could get authorization to fly there in 2 weeks. But yet I needed to fly an airplane without the aircraft didn't have, basically in world, it didn't have the right transponder certification. I had to fly it somewhere to get that certification. So I did what's called a special flight permit. I got that in 2 hours. And so there's a process to be able to do these things, and we just got to find a way to do them. So we can get these permissions a lot quicker than 90 days.
Yeah, and I completely agree. I think the FAA is really stepping up, and Charles Warner and I were talking about this as well recently. But it's happening, and yeah, it's exciting. It's exciting. Now, talking about the future and looking ahead, I mean, what are your goals for the CSU Drone Center in the next 5 years?
So 5 years might be a little auspicious for this one, but if I looked ahead in 5 years, one of my primary goals would be to relocate from where we're at and actually have a dedicated building built, purpose built at the airfield for ourselves. So we are currently a half a mile from the airfield. We have a great spot. College Engineering has been wonderful for hosting us. We've steadily grown. We went from this, I don't know if you were here at one point, we went from like one room that had like a table and an office and a desk and a bunch of drones crammed in it to then one room and a lab, which I think is where you were last time. We had a storage room and then a lab. So now we own pretty much half of that, well, 3/4 of that entire floor we have a simulator room, we have a 3D printer room, we have a full Redbird training simulator for flight. We have drone simulator set up for training. We have a full mapping room now that's all dedicated to building mapping and models with computer machines. We have offices for students and for some of our graduate students and our full-timers. So yeah, we have that space, but we actually want to build a purpose-built space at the airfield that has place for our collaborators to come train, our collaborators to come work and build, different industries to come in. And my dream is at Chrisman, a industry collaborative style environment where we might have different manufacturers that would have a mini operations base where they have teams flying 40 hours a week, or have a lab where they're building their next generation drone that they can open the door and fly. Where we have classroom spaces where it's you come and you take the class here, and then you step out on the back patio and you fly drones for 2 hours. That's one of my long-term 5-year dreams. Working on it right now. So the first step of that was Chrisman, which was getting all the money to repave it. We're putting in a ramp, redo the buildings. That took me 7 years. So, but we're able to get it. Hopefully I can get this one in a shorter term. So we're building that dream now. We're hopefully adding 2 employees in the next year. So stay tuned. We know we will bring on a full-timer. So do stay tuned to my LinkedIn. I'll be posting on this in the next couple of months for a 13, 18-month research project working on greater than 55-pound eVTOL lift capabilities, fixed wing. It'll be based here at Chrisman for testing. So that'll be a 13 to 18-month appointment to purely work on that project and work on that piloting. So it'll be a good chance to come work with us. Potentially could grow into a longer-term project, but at least it'll be full-time for that time, research position. And then we're hoping to add a 24-month funded full-time position that will hopefully grow into another full-time position to come work with us here. Both of those hiring this summer. So those are short-term versus long-term goals is getting those on board.
That's awesome. Well, hey, let me know. I know so many people are looking for ways into this industry too, and all of this, and it's going to be an exciting time. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do have to put a nod to the uncertainty of the times around research and drones right now, right? Every single day we're receiving different news, especially in the research space. So far we've been okay, but we hope to be that way. But really one of our goals is maintaining our current research capacities and being able to still offer those in the changing landscape of what research funding looks like, what the drone industry looks like, what tariffs look like coming in, and how we can continue to operate underneath these changing landscapes.
Well, let's talk maybe on a personal side of this, reflecting on your journey throughout all of this. What has been the most rewarding aspect of your work in the drone industry?
Getting to create and getting to build, which is interesting. I've been very, very fortunate. Yeah, law enforcement was a blast. There's things about it that I miss. There's a lot I don't miss about law enforcement, but I do miss, my brothers and sisters and being part of the kind of the line in the sand that held that kind of what society is deemed as right and correct, and being the person that, with my brother and sisters, to make sure that people didn't take advantage of others and hold that line. I miss that. I don't miss the politics. I don't miss the stress. So drones have really been able to give me a different place to engage my brain, still help serve society by helping our first responders, and also innovate, do different things. I constantly find myself in positions flying drones going, I never would have dreamed I would have been here, for different groups, and operating drones and seeing the cutting edge of how they're changing the way we think about things and the way we're using technology to access what I like to call the fourth dimension, right? The fourth dimension is not the ookie spookies, the ghosts and things to me. It's the 400 feet above your head that you can immediately access in the next 2 minutes through the eyes of your drone. And so that has been the most rewarding thing, is to get to transfer out of that and experience that and give people that access and watch their amazement and wonder and what they can now do with drones that they never really thought they could do before, because now they can kind of transition into that fourth dimension easier than we ever have before. Rewarding, it's just getting to use my brain and to build, and whether it's building a different drone or it's modifying a drone or it's building an entire program and growing into kind of, if we dream it and it passes the should we do this, let's find a way to make it happen. And then looking back years later and be like, holy cow, we did that thing that we never thought would be impossible. And we did it with drones. So, which is really interesting.
Well said. Now, for those inspiring to enter this drone field and world and so on, what advice would you offer based on your experiences?
Oh, yes. I actually hear this from time to time, and the 107 is just the entry gate, right? And one, get your 107, no matter what. You are operating, whether you're just a hobbyist or
I
not.
have friends getting their 107 that have no intention on doing that much in the drone industry. It's really just another excellent filter to see the world. It's like, I got my Saumonier, my Cicerone I have, but just so I can see and view and be able to taste and understand a little bit more. It's the same way, right? It's such an awesome filter.
And the reason I say that is you're flying an aircraft. The FAA is deemed as aircraft. You're flying an aircraft, and you should know what rules and responsibilities to be a professional you need to be in the airspace. And really the 107 is a good way to get there. But get your 107. But the biggest thing I would tell anybody who really wants to get into drones and really wants to be a drone pilot is to be a drone nerd. Dive in. Like, there are so many people I know that have their 107s that can kind of fly or might be able to get the job done. But the people who make a lot of money, at least in my area of it, the people who go on and become the drone experts or go out and do these really complicated, challenging missions, they may not be able to recite what class Bravo airspace is or what class Delta airspace is or how an airplane lands at an airport. They pass that knowledge. But what they can tell you is what the wattage of their drone is, what the voltage, what its operating system is, how it flies, what they're going to do in an emergency. They can program a map. They know everything about that aircraft because they have flown it hundreds of hours, and they have really developed the skill set with that aircraft to fly it. That's what's most important. And if you want to be a drone pilot, you need to be a drone nerd and just totally dive in and know everything you possibly can and fly the heck out of your aircraft. Fly them safely, but know how they operate so that you can be able to go out there, do the systems, and go do those jobs that not everybody be able to do because they can fly, but they're not a really true drone pilot that knows it in and out. And then, yeah, that's kind of the big piece I'd offer the advice there to starting out, is get the 107, but also be just hands-on drone nerd.
Yeah. Just have that urge to and like curiosity to constantly learn all the time, right? There's so much happening, so much. I mean, right? You're talking about know your drone and so on, but also just the new drone, there's going to be a new form, a new technology, now it's not even Koa, it's Kawa. Like it's just, there's so much happening right now. What's going to be the next thing, right? Is it going to be drones as a central service that every different public safety agency uses, like from a box? Like what? Like is it going to be 3D printed and used for one-time use? There's so much that could happen, right? So, yeah, keep that thirst.
And on a pro tip, something I do is, I deleted Facebook, and now any of my social media time is on LinkedIn. And I've also made a lot of LinkedIn friends. And so I can hit my feed, and in 10 minutes of scrolling, instead of just scrolling through mindless TikTok videos or whatever, I'm actually spending 10 minutes learning more about the industry because someone's posting about this new drone they just posted, or someone's posting about this new technology they're working on with the UAS. And so I'm spending my time a little bit more profitable on a social media platform to keep myself educated on the current things. So that's a really good thing you can do, is build that network, especially with LinkedIn. It's a very powerful tool for the drone world.
Very well said. And something that is woven throughout all the episodes for DroneCast has been community, and how much that this industry needs to continue to cultivate this and create it, because drone software, I mean, even DroneSense was started by a community, by people just calling out to those and be like, hey, we want to do this. How do you feel about that? Or is this a good idea? Like, what would be the optimal thing you would like tool to use in the field? Like, what would that look like? Like, and then just having this group. I mean, Drone Responders is a great one. I know you're not on Facebook, but DroneSense does a great working group on Facebook weekly on Fridays. I mean, it's keep a community going. So, yeah. Now, my last question for you, and I think you kind of hit on this a little bit earlier, but outside of your professional endeavors, what hobbies or interests help you unwind and help stay inspired?
Believe it or not, it's a pretty simple one, and that is every 2 days I go running. I try to do without fail. And even if it's just a mile, grab the dog, go for a mile run. Usually it's somewhere between a mile or 2 miles, or sometimes 3 if I really need the exercise. It's a great way to put the day down, but also focus my mind, because you can't look at your phone. You can't do anything, and you don't really want to focus on the physical exertion, because that just makes it harder. So you end up thinking about things, and it's a way to find clarity. And it helps me line up my day the next day. It helps me kind of think. And sometimes I come up with some crazy ideas, and I start thinking about, I'm like, oh, what if we did that? What if we did this? What if we tried this approach to this type of problem? And then the ultimate unwind is obviously playing video games. I mean, you're a drone nerd and you don't play video games.
I'm so glad you said that. Honestly, I've trained multiple different groups too, and like so on. I'd be like, all right, tonight you're getting your Nintendo out and you're playing Mario Kart, or you're gonna crush Zelda, because I just want you to get that feel again with muscle memory with your hands. And it's the truth. What are you playing right now, Chris? What's your game?
Believe it or not, I am replaying Elder Scrolls Online from like 10 years ago. Yeah, I was on a run and a song popped up from there, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go play that again. So that's been kind of the guilty pleasure game for now. And you asked that about I've given people that homework. The first thing I'll ask anybody new that I haven't flown with before, have you flown a drone? And if they say no, I go, do you play video games? And they say no. I'm like, well, I'm in for my work. But if they say yes, the next question is, do you play console or do you play computer? If they say console, I'm like, done. Here's the controller. Go fly the drone. It's the same thing, except for there's no screen. It's in real life, And then I get to make the joke of, your parents told you video games would never be profitable. Now I can turn around and tell my parents, I'm like, hey, all those times someone it's helped me for my real job.
I
So
say the same thing. I love this. This is great.
yeah,
Awesome.
I'm dead serious. The video game players that play Xbox or PS or play computer games on the console controller make the best pilots. They just transition like that. You could teach them to fly drones in 20 minutes.
Love it. Well, Chris, hey, thank you so much for sharing your valuable insights and experiences. And your work at CSU's Drone Center just exemplifies the transformative, pivotal thing of drone technology in education and public safety. I just got to also say thank you to our listeners for staying tuned and continue engaging on conversations here at DroneCast. We'll see you next time. Take care.